Good evening, folks. It is April 6, 2023. Hobby Talk with PSA Canada. We got Brad Harlan up in the air somewhere, flying in the Lear, off to parts unknown. We got Luke over in the hotel. We got Kevin in his house.
Are you at home, Kevin? Or are you
Not my house. I'm at my in-laws.
Oh, see, he's not even in his own house. I'm the only one who's actually in their own location. Everybody's
not even at my own house.
Not even his own. This is terrible. Terrible. But yeah, I was in touch with Sherry, and we'll get Brad on next week. But right now he's out and about, and we'll have a little bit of a chance. He did make it out to the Mint Collective, so probably next time around we'll get a chance to at least talk a little bit about that, get a couple stories from him because it was a little bit eventful. So it'll be a little bit of a shorter show. Everybody's kind of hanging out, doing a couple of things. Luke, you're out and headed over the show. Which one was it again? Refresh my memory.
Langley, the Bosa show. So the Langley Convention Center.
Perfect. So Eric here, good evening. Absolutely. And Sherry's hanging out in the chat for a little bit as well. So like I said, it'll be a little bit of a shorter show. So if you got any questions or anything, feel free to throw them in a little bit early, just so that we get that underway. And then we're approaching the end of the regular season. So a couple of folks that are going to have some of their guesses. I've been noticing them in the comment section. So if you want to take any last minute cracks at it to throw off whatever you think the Connor McDavid final point total for the regular season is going to be, you might want to throw that in.
What's he at right now? Do you know?
I think it's 140. I say 147, 148.
148.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. So he's only been getting a couple of points. He's only been getting like a point a game. He's slacking.
I know he is.
Yeah, it's just terrible. I'm expecting like 3-4 point nights. What the hell? So yeah, 148. So he's just shy of 150. And anytime, and you creep into the 150s, that's where you start getting into. It's already been a really great season, but as you creep into the 150s, you're getting kind of the lead category, where most of the guys who had 150 plus point season, most of them were in the 80s and early 90s. So you got to go back a long ways to see that kind of production. Good evening. Absolutely. Adriano. Jeff, good evening. Absolutely. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's been fun. It's been fun to kind of see it and kind of keep an eye, at least scoreboard watch. Even if you're not watching every game, at least scoreboard watch just to see what's going on. And you kind of get disappointed. It's like, one assist. Psh, slacking. It's just terrible. Awful. So Kevin, how are things for you? It's been a little while since we had you on.
Not bad. You'll probably hear my baby crying in the background. He's having enough currently. We're going through that 4-month sleep regression. So it's been a challenge. It's been a challenge, but we're getting through it.
Nice. Sounds fair. Sounds good. And for the most part this week, coming off of it, we've been having a little bit of fun. Well, I'll get a chance to talk a little bit more about it on Friday, but our good friends at Beckett had some fun. And I had some fun talking about that. Now, this is one we can talk about. So there's two things. Also on Friday, I'm going to record it after I finish with this tonight. I got in my big league baseball. So Luke, you got your cases over there, right? Are we opening it up to get our influencer cards? Come on, Luke.
My palette. I'm going to open up tomorrow.
You should open a palette. That might be what you need to get a couple of these influencer cards. I got to open it up. I want my Bo Jackson auto, Luke. I want my Bo Jackson auto.
That's probably the only thing that I really look for in there.
There's a couple of decent autographs in there. There are a couple that should be fun. And they staggered the base set. Like I said, for me, for fun, at the price point, I figured I actually like opening packs here and there. So at the price point, it's fine. Now, on the back, it says #rigged. So do you think that means anything? Just they marked it off? And it probably means nothing. Don't worry about it. Anyway.
All Jeff Wilson autographs.
That's going to be Jeff Wilson. Every pack will be either a Jeff Wilson or Bo Jackson auto. Carlos, they're only at 25. Well, I got like 6 of them. What do you want from me? Rigged. Tom here, good evening. Can people drop off multiple kinds of submissions and only pay one return shipping fee?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it doesn't get shipped back to you till everything's all back.
Yeah. So if you consolidate it, then that's how you get the one shipping fee. Yeah. That is right. Need my Timmy 2 hats? That's right, Eric. Absolutely. That's right. But yeah, so we can talk about this one a little bit because this one just came over the wire a little bit. It was kind of interesting one. It's mostly just speculation time, but I'll fill you guys in a little bit. Yesterday, couple of the word got around a little bit that there were some folks that had just randomly up and quit over at Panini all at once, several of them in several interesting positions. And then coincidentally, several of them might be fulfilling roles that Fanatics might be looking for. This kind of comes on the heels of the word getting out through a gentleman from The Athletic who said apparently there's going to be a 2023-2024 NBA release from Topps. And the first thing, so that was kind of the first shoe to drop. And the question was like, okay, so licensed or unlicensed? Interesting.
I mean, that's because nobody cares about unlicensed.
Well, but here's the thing though. That was the first shoe to drop. So it was an open question. It wasn't like, it wasn't gonna be a situation where you knew for sure. It was gonna be something that people were gonna ask for sure. And then we get the following thing where like all of a sudden some folks at Panini are just up and quitting, and it wasn't a situation where they got fired. It's like no, they left. And at the Mint Collective, all these folks were kind of hanging around. So right after the Mint Collective, all of a sudden, a couple of folks at Panini who were doing some of the jobs in the trading card division suddenly leave. And coincidentally, there happen to be some job openings that are eerily similar to stuff they were doing over at Fanatics. So good buddy Fanatics, and I made a video kind of alluding to this as well. And the rumor for some time has been the Fanatics has a little bit of leverage or control. It could be ownership, or it could just be the contracts and their leverage in general, where they've been having some control over some of the printers and suppliers. So they have a lot of say in kind of what gets printed in what order and such. Again, that's the circulating rumor. But in isolation, these three things don't really matter. But start putting the pieces together and start putting them one after another, where it's like, okay, so you seem to have some influence over at least some of the suppliers who print the cards for everybody, because nobody has their own manufacturer. Then you've got some people randomly leaving from one of the competitors, and then you've not announced, but made clear that there's probably going to be an NBA set coming out. So it's like you put these three pieces together. Are you trying to jump the gun on getting a license a little bit early? You're trying to apply a little bit of pressure. So right now we're kind of in questioning territory. Any kind of thoughts on that, Luke? It's kind of an interesting set of coincidences, these three things together.
Doesn't Fanatics have the license for NBA?
They will in 2026. So the thing is, so the reason why it's interesting is that technically they will get it. Like if they just wait patiently, they would get it. But Panini technically controls that, and the NFL one still for a couple more years. But if they wanted to apply pressure, it's one of those things where Panini's a lame duck licensee right now with those two, but they've still got time. But if you're impatient, you're Fanatics, and right now Fanatics is starting to make more moves. You're starting to see Michael Rubin out there. They're starting to put a little bit heavier promotion. They're doing things a little bit more aggressively now. If you're them, and maybe you had made an offer to Panini and they turned you down and said, yeah, we'll revisit this later, and now you want to start applying some pressure, these are ways you could do that. It'd be like, okay, so we're going to start poaching people.
Don't they have the buy-in from the like the players' associations?
Yeah.
Outside
absolutely.
of having the contract, like the players have an actual stake in it with Fanatics, whereas they were getting almost nothing with Panini. So it wouldn't be surprising to see something happen quicker, even if it was like a backdoor kind of deal. But
well, I made the joke that Fanatics right now gets to be like the mob guys, the mafia guys coming over. It's like, it'd be a shame if you were to suddenly lose some of your most critical employees in some of this thing. But you know what would fix your problem? If you sold. It's like there are ways you can make make Panini's life a little bit more difficult. You don't have to necessarily go overtly doing something, but you could be like, okay, so we'll start poaching your people. We'll offer them way more money to do the same job. Gone. And then when it comes time to printing, if we have any influence over the printer, print their stuff after our stuff. And then all of a sudden your products are getting delayed, and little things. You start basically throwing little wrenches in the works, basically just to make it uncomfortable and really annoying for you to be like, so this can go away if you sign the contract. We want the license. We want it now.
Maybe it's just maybe that's what they're doing to Upper Deck.
Well, that's kind of a point that I made, though. I said Upper Deck right now feels like they're at the back of the line for every printing thing.
Yeah,
it feels like the stuff will get printed, but they've had to go to Italy. They've had to go to there's a supplier in Canada that's doing some stuff for them. And why are they having to do this when they're the same set of suppliers are working with everybody else? What if you're just not a priority? What if they're like, yeah, you can print their stuff after you print our stuff? So in other words, you keep getting pushed to the back of the line over and over again. So then you keep getting delayed. It's not that they will never print it. It's just, they'll print it after everything else is done. Then we'll get to you. Any thoughts on that, Luke? Again, we're kind of speculating. This is like a pure speculation, kind of let your imagination run wild wherever you want to go.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know too much about it, So, I mean,
let me present the question to you a different way, Luke. If you're over at Fanatics and your boss and Michael Rubin comes over and goes, Luke, I want this licenses from these fools and I want it now. The playbook right now is playing out kind of the way that I would do it. Oh, yeah. I would do these little things to apply pressure. I would do these little things to basically annoy you at every turn, cause you disruption at every turn, and be like, I'm only going to make your life more difficult the longer you wait.
Now, do we know? Oh, sorry, Luke, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, do we know if the people that print like Pokemon and Magic the Gathering and that stuff are the same people printing sports cards, or are they separate entities? Because I know like Cardamundi prints a lot of the TCG side of things, and then Pokemon bought Millennial Print Group last year.
Yeah.
So that might, I don't know if they do anything, but if they did, then those people would also have more control over printing.
Yeah, I think I will say, in just my opinion, just because it's one of those things you'd have to dig into it a little bit more. Because I think the only way you'd know for sure is just to know which suppliers are being used and what the relationships are with them. And none of us know 100% other than the manufacturers themselves. They know what their contracts are, they know what their deals are. I think the Pokemon guys were smart. And this is something, like I've said, if I was advising Fanatics, I would have said buy one of the suppliers. Just flat out buy them. Like throw them as much, throw them nearly a blank check, buy them so that you control. So effectively, the other manufacturers have to come to you and pay you for the privilege of getting printing time. So you really do control it. You still let them have it because you don't ever want to be like a full-fledged monopoly. Because if you're a full-fledged monopoly, then you got to deal with the rest of the consequences of that and the issues with that. No, you allow them to print stuff, but again, you don't have to print it urgently. You can slow things down. You can slow down the works a little bit. And for some reason, your stuff always gets out on time, but their stuff is always a little bit delayed. But you can still send it out.
Yeah.
And has flaws.
Yeah. The question is just how ruthless do you want to be? Like basically what I'm implying is how ruthless do you want to be in making sure that you get what you want? Because if you're Fanatics at this point, if you are able to get enough people in the right places to do what you want them to do, design the product, roll out the product, and you've got all the people in the proper places and you're ready to go, then you basically want to turn the machine on. So you're like, yeah, I don't want to wait until 2026, so I want the license now. So what do I need to do to get this license a little bit quicker? How about I just make it really difficult for you?
Well, you even see them go after like the jersey license in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't need to do that. Adidas was doing fine.
Yeah, they want to have as much control over the pieces. And one other piece I'll put it to you is basically this is what happened with Topps. Topps was about to go into a SPAC. They were going to be like $1 billion company. They were going to go into this whole deal. And all of a sudden, Fanatics came in and go, by the way, we've got the baseball license, so now you don't have it after this. And all of a sudden, the deal fell apart because, well, Topps without the baseball license is what? Garbage Pail Kids? All of a sudden, Topps is not nearly as... Topps suddenly became worth less overnight.
Topps MetaZoo.
Yeah, exactly. But the point is, though, that's a ruthless move because you announced it literally as they were about to have, as the SPAC was about to happen. You came in and said, by the way, you won't have this baseball license anymore. Mine. And all of a sudden, Topps is worth less and the deal falls apart. And now Topps is sitting there with no suitors. And the Fanatics goes, so I bet our money sounds good now. This is our offer. And they probably got it for a fraction of probably what it could have been if they had been allowed to build up and shore up their forces a little bit. It's not like Fanatics is above being ruthless.
No, and they totally could have just strong-armed them anyway. They kind of bailed them out at a price that probably they overpaid for it at the time. They could have just choked them off and then bought the IP for what they wanted, but they bought it still at a higher price. But Topps without baseball is nothing.
Correct. Go ahead, Luke.
Well, I was just gonna say, so then, if Fanatics has that much of a power to do all that stuff, whatever, then why is it that they aren't? Like, why is it that they can't buy this license right now? Like, I mean,
Panini is a bigger company. Like Panini themselves as a company is actually larger. So whereas Topps had spent all these years trying to build them, Topps to at the time it happened, I said in my opinion, Topps had not done a particularly good job. They had this baseball exclusive for years and years and years, and they never fully like capitalized on it and like made themselves bigger. Panini is a multi-billion-dollar company, legitimately in the space.
Yeah, and don't forget, like a lot of people forget that like Panini, the sticker side of Panini is bigger than the card side.
Correct.
Like way bigger.
Yeah.
Like that is their main focus as opposed to the sports cards. Meanwhile, the sports cards have obviously taken off and become a very much larger part, but their focus was always on the Italy sticker, like stickers printed in Italy. So
yeah. And the thing is, from that perspective, then Panini's in a better position, and they have more cash reserves, and they're basically in a better position to say no, and they can afford to say no longer. But Fanatics still does have the ability, again, like I said, as opposed to just trying to come over the top with a sledgehammer, they can come in and they can say, Okay, so we're not going to be able to beat you down necessarily the same way we beat down Tops until they basically surrendered and said no mas. We can't do that. But we can make this very uncomfortable for you. We can slow you down at every turn, make this really annoying until you get fed up with it.
But I don't think they can.
Well, if they have any sway over the manufacturer, yes, they can. They can start slowing down your releases. That'll cause you a little bit of an issue. They can go further ahead with poaching your talent, and basically to the point that it's like, okay, you're gonna have to hire more people, new people, and the people that you have with experience are all gone because they keep hiring them out. And by the way, that license is still gonna expire, so you're still on an expiration date no matter what. So it's like you either sell to us now, and this is our offer now. In 6 months, our offer is 30% less. In 12 months, our offer is 70% less. And you just keep dropping the price down and go, so how long you want to keep playing this game? That's why I say, like, you can't beat them down the same way, but you can slowly drag them down by death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's just these tiny little annoying things and just keep bleeding you out over time.
Yeah, I mean, they have the power to do it. It's Fanatics now has the brand and the clout behind it that it's a matter of time. It's just how long Panini wants to try to hold on and milk whatever they possibly can out of the licenses that they do have.
Yeah, it's a weird game of chicken because basically Panini is rolling along at its cruiser, and then Fanatics is rolling along with a tank, and it's like in this game of chicken, the tank is going to roll over you. If you actually don't turn away, it's actually going to roll right over you, and eventually you guys will make contact. So it's like, how long you want to keep going in a straight line? It's just interesting. I like it from being in the back seat. It's like I got my popcorn ready to go. I'm getting a new case. Speaking of a case, I'm getting a case of popcorn, Luke. I'm getting ready. It's gonna be fantastic. I'm getting the extra butter popcorn.
Luke, what are you going to rip at the expo?
The expo or tomorrow?
The expo, not tomorrow. I won't be there, so I don't care about tomorrow. I care about when I'm there.
Come on, Luke. Tell them the truth. Cases of Topps Big League. You know.
Pallets of that.
Pallets, man.
I don't know. It depends because I think SPA is supposed to be out that week as well.
Yep.
So if it does come out, then probably SPA.
That'd be a good one. I think that would be a fun product. So he just Eric here saying Fanatics should have better quality control to learn from many. You'd hope so. The only thing I would say though, just bear in mind, is that if they are using the similar suppliers, the quality control, some of it is at the supplier level. So it's going to have to be a QA thing for them. If we're going to improve the quality control, it's going to have to be a better QA process, because otherwise, if the suppliers are not doing it right, somebody actually has to step in and say, hey, you guys aren't doing it right. Do a better job. So I think it's important. So Bob was here. Good evening. Just came to say goal number 44 for Robertson. There you go. You and Luke got to keep the Robertson punk
Hey,
going.
Rob.
That's right. So Tom here says, this PSA tag slept for crossover. I'm going to, on Friday, I would have a very different answer for you. I'm simply going to leave it to you gentlemen to answer this question.
Yes, they do.
There you go. James here says, I'm here. Was that, Luke?
But I wouldn't do it.
There you go. I'm here with my popcorn waiting too. That's right, James. Absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, I just think it's interesting. Like right now, that is, it's fun because right now it's speculating. We're all kind of guessing. We're trying to sit back. I do think though, it feels like Fanatics is making stronger moves. And that is relevant because it is going to impact what happens here. Panini, I think, has some decisions to make, because if they are starting to have some of their people poached, which is already in the process of happening right now, there are some folks you can afford to lose, and you can probably find somebody to at least fill their shoes. That's okay. But there's some folks, eventually, though, if you keep losing critical individuals, that is going to slow you down. Like, however you want to put it, because you can put somebody else in there, but apparently the key to this particular story was that the people that it left suddenly. So it wasn't like they gave you this big long lead time and notice. They kind of like, yeah, see you, bye.
It was like a coup in the night.
Yeah. So it's
It just didn't show up one day and went to Fanatics the next.
Yeah, the speed makes it a little more damaging than if they say, hey, I've accepted a new job, but I'll help you transition to somebody else doing this role. It doesn't feel like, from what we've heard so far, it doesn't feel like it's that. It's more like, hey, I'm gone. See ya.
But I think all big companies would ever have a backup plan, right? So, I mean, I'm sure these people have somebody else, maybe not as good a position for them to do, but I'm sure they have somebody that's there to take it over, right? I don't know.
I'd like to announce I've taken a job with Topps.
Now might be the time. Maybe they're making some decent offers. Tom says, "Is there any way to ask PSA how they remove the cards? Are you talking about if you try to cross something over? Just if you could clarify. I'm assuming that's what you're asking. They don't use the hammer and chisel or tin snippers like the YouTubers use. Funny enough, I use a Dremel. That's fair enough. I'll be honest. Like just speaking honestly, most of the time, if you were going to try to cross it over, you're probably best served to remove it from the holder. It's
Yep.
very rare that a legitimate crossover works out for you. But hey, to each their own. You do you. But I think it's going to be a little bit of situation where you would just remove it, and that would just make the most sense for you. But if you did cross it over, I guess it'd be interesting to see if somebody did try to cross it over and they did agree to the crossover and it met the grade that you wanted, how they would remove it. I wonder how PSA would actually what tools or technology they would use to actually remove.
I'm all about the tin snips and the flathead screwdriver.
There you go. Going ahead.
Crack 67 slabs today to send back to PSA.
There you go. A variety or any specific company in particular?
Mostly PSA and Beckett. PSA
Okay.
undergraded a couple of them, and for me, it's just the volume I send, and I don't care to contest it. I'd rather just add it back into the order and send it back. But stuff that was 9, 10 got 8s, so I just cracked a bunch and retry.
All right.
Pokemon?
Good.
What?
Pokemon stuff?
Always Pokemon.
So you're saying we're not. So you're saying, are you expecting any influx of Beckett ones because they've had some fun this week?
I actually had a bunch of people send me cards for Beckett this week, which was pretty funny. And then all that happened, and I was gonna spend the time to reach out and be like, "Do you still want me to do this?" But to each their own. I mean, we'll see how that plays out. I can't see it going well.
Mm-hmm. So Bobbles here says, I'd be cautious of poaching employees. CSG tried that and didn't help them, and the company they poached for him is lost. That is true, but in this case, we've got a manufacturer who has that license afterwards. So it's one of those things where, like, let's put it this way. If you take the NBA one alone, in 2026, Panini will not have the NBA license. It doesn't matter what they do. It does if they retain all their employees, don't retain all their employees, if they get every release through or not. And after 2026, they will not have the license anymore. So that is out. They can still try to produce cards on license if they want to. They can do what they did with the baseball. They could try to produce the unlicensed cards if they want to keep trying to do that. Same with football, because I think it's around the same time or within a year or two apart of the other one. So both those licenses go away. But the thing is, since we're in 2023, technically they still have time. They could still milk certainly more products out of it. That's what makes it interesting. Is that again, Panini doesn't have to sell anything. And they are a larger company. They can hang in there and just keep dealing with whatever nuisances that Fanatics throws their way. But it does appear, at least from the outside looking in, that Fanatics is trying to apply a little bit more pressure. Yeah, do crossovers without a min grade. You like to live dangerously. Fair enough. Then they remove and grade it. There you go. Mark says, what about the ethics of breaking PSA graded cards and resubmitting them, which screws up a pop reports? That's not really an ethics question. I think I get what Mark is
send in
going.
all my labels, so I don't care.
There you go.
For me, I don't. But I mean, for most cards, the pop report doesn't change. It doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
One card's not going to affect it. If it was a huge card at this point, now that PSA has integrated with all the companies that they've purchased, they would recognize these numbered cards showing up anyway. Because when I look at this, like the ethics, I think of like a gold Prism rookie at a 10. They're going to know that they can go back and look now that they photograph every single card that comes in. They can know that they've already graded that card.
Mm-hmm. No,
So,
I get it. I think maybe the question I have, and Luke, I want to get your take on this one. I understand what Mark's getting at. Like I do actually get the point he's getting at. I just don't feel like this is an ethics question, because what it really comes down to is it's not the individual's job to make sure the pop report's accurate. By the same vein, as the consumer, you should take the pop report with a grain of salt, because you can resubmit. That is the thing. You can do that. And even if PSA or Beckett, who has a pop report as well, SGC, any of them, they'll try their best to keep it as up to date as possible. But if somebody crosses it over and throws the labels in the garbage, unless you know for a fact that it's the same card and you're a different company and you grade the same card, your job is to grade the card in front of you. And you've got the grade and you add it to the pop report accordingly. So you do that. That's fine. But that's it. You've done your job. To the best of your ability, you've done your job. You just didn't have the information. I'm not sure if it's an ethics piece though. That's kind of just where I get the idea though. In an ideal world, you resubmit to crack it out. Send it in with the label so that at least it can be removed and then updated accordingly. That would make sense, but most people don't do that.
Yeah, I agree. To me, I think pop reports are really useless. They're useful in a certain way. I mean, when you're into the thousands and stuff, what does it matter what pop reports? Unless you're the thousands, and it's more of information. It's not about the cards, though. But like Kevin was saying, I mean, as a number 10 out of 10, if it's a low card that gets a pop report of like up to 10, okay, that means that all 10 got graded, or 5 got sent back in. Well, who knows? But I mean, really, when you're buying, it's like anything else. When you're buying the card, you're buying that card. You're not buying for how many is out there or what it is out there. That's what I look at it.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think the other piece of the puzzle that's important is that if you've got a card that's out of 10 and the pop report is 14, you should know something's up. Like that should be the case. And by the way, that's totally possible. Like that could very well be that some folks resubmitted and like it happens.
Yeah.
And at that point,
And there's lots of like, doesn't matter which company, PSA or Beckett or whatever. I mean, lots of people resubmit it in, and they, like you said, it skews the numbers a little bit. But I mean, how much does it skew it to make actually a difference? Mm-hmm. If you're sending out of the 3,000, 3,500 McDavids that were graded or whatever, I mean, how many were resent again to get a higher grade? Mm-hmm. Okay, but then that means that the 9s are all skewed because maybe it was a 9 before. So I mean, it's all over the place. But I mean, you look at the card, and you just say, "Do I want that card? Do I like that card? Do I like the grade? Okay, I'll buy it. Done."
Yeah. And I think an important thing as well is you again use the pop report as as kind of a general guideline. Yes. I know there are people out there that try to pay like premiums for low pop, but I've always thought that was weird because I'll use the example of one of the last returns that I did. I sent in some of those AEW cards, and I got a bunch of pop ones back. So I got PSA 10 pop 1 because I'm the first one to send one. That's why it's a pop 1. if a couple more people send a few and a couple get hit, again, a couple get 10s, the set is a little bit condition sensitive, but not so much so that it's impossible. If somebody went and sent in a small stack of them, they would get some 10s. So it wouldn't be a pop 1 anymore. But for a brief shining moment, it is a pop 1. But what does that really mean? Like it is true, but like what does that really mean?
I mean, I have a customer who sends monthly like $6 cards to get graded that are like pop like 2 in Pokemon, and then he ends up selling them for like $800 or $900 if they get a 10. Like guys, he's smart, he's doing well, but Pokemon, it's weird that people do that. He's grading like his $6 card, paying his grading fee, and selling it for like $700. But if it gets a 9, it's worth like $6. So it's a gamble.
It is for sure, but I mean, the looking at that, like with the pop report, like for example, that AEW card. I mean, if there is a pop 1, but there's like 20 other ones that were graded and they came 9s or 8s, yeah, you know what? Then that pop 1 becomes more popular, or it's worth more, and that's where I would look at it. If it was a 2, if there's pop 2 or whatever, does that make a difference on the value? Still 2 compared to 20 is a little different, but then to get that second one, you're probably getting another 20 that were graded that are 9s. So that means that 10s are really hard to do.
Yeah,
right. But that's how I look at the pop report.
Yeah, exactly. As a percentage of the overall submission, I think that makes sense. The only reason, though, I use that example is, what about a situation where there's a grand total of 5 that have been graded, and it's like 1 8, 3 9s, and a 10. Like, okay, that doesn't really it's too small a sample size to draw any like crazy conclusions from that. Not enough cards have been submitted in, and it's not like nobody else can submit these cards. Just nobody else really thought to do it. If somebody else goes and sends a stack of them, we'd find out what the real ratio is. But like 5 total cards graded, okay, it's a pop 1. That is true, but it's not like people send in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cards, and it turns out it's actually very difficult.
Yeah.
So Paul here says, my favorite eBay listing, get a PSA 6. The rest of the pop report is 9s and 10s, but the eBay listing is 6 is a pop 1. That's right. I've seen that. It makes me laugh. It's like, yes, you are technically correct. That is true. So, Kevin, I think the angle here is you send in the Pokemon cards ripped in half. PSA 1, pop 1.
I mean, there's a niche market for pop 1 PSA 1 cards.
That's what I'm saying.
It's a booming thing. If it's like a 4 quality, people always mess it up more to try to get the 1.
Hey, but if you look at it, Pop 1 or PSA 1 is very hard to get compared to a PSA 10, 9, 8, 7. So I mean, it really is very rare, you know.
Yeah, man. I like I said, like a PSA 1 for like a Charizard, like a first edition Charizard, will sell for like 5 or 6 grand, but a PSA 3 will sell for like 3,500. Like it's like a very different, and like people will buy it just to try to beat it up so that they can collect PSA 1s of expensive cards that they can't buy the higher quality stuff in. It's hilarious.
But if they beat it up and they got a 2, then they lost that card there, right? So it is hard to get that
Or
1.
authentic or ungraded. It's
Yep.
weird though, and like the difference between a 1 and not grading is like the most gray line that I've ever seen in my entire life. Like I've got some cards for customers where I'm like, this thing is like destroyed, like half the back is gone, like it's wrecked, and it still gets a 1. And then I've had other times where I'm like, oh, that doesn't look too bad, and it doesn't get graded.
Hey, I'm gonna put my investor hat on here and
Uh-oh.
now make the shout out that, you know what? I bet you everybody that's watching right now, how many can show a modern card that's a PSA 1?
I'm glad you put in the qualifier of a modern.
I have
without
one.
the qualifiers, like I got a bunch actually.
I have
Go
one. I
ahead,
got a
Kevin.
customer who sent one. It's definitely a 10. They just mistyped the label.
Nice.
And it says a 1.
Nice. Yep, absolutely. So Tom's saying some people do PSA runs of 1, 2, 3, etc. Yep. No, you're right. You're right. It is a niche, but it is a niche that some folks go after. Hockey Barn, good evening. I want an SCI Tops PSA run. That's fair. That would be interesting. I wonder what I like. Sports Card Investor actually has a bounty on some of his cards. So if you pull it, like if you pull a PSA 10, I think it's a $2,500 bounty. So it's pretty size, it's pretty solid, pretty strong.
But only for 1.
Yeah.
The first one he gets. That's what he said.
Yeah, but
You must have that money from that PPP loan.
But you know what's funny about this is that it's actually pretty tough to pull. From what I understand, I think it's 1 in every 5 or 6 boxes. It's like we've been hearing so far. Like not impossible, but it's certainly not like easy. It's not like the joke aside. The likelihood is I'm not going to pull one of those, but it'd be funny if I did.
You
And
should
it'll
try
make for a good
right
video,
now.
and it'll make it good for a good video. So we'll see. And I never know. If I get enough entertainment out of this box, I might get another box. But because now the local card shop has it here, so I might pop in and grab one. They're cheap enough that I can have some fun with it, but it'd be kind of we'd have to see.
Did you buy 2 of them?
No, I bought one. I bought one just for the entertainment value. I thought about getting a second one, but I was like, how much commitment do I have to the joke? Right now, I'm committed to 1 box for the joke. If I get enough entertainment value out of the 1, maybe I'll do a second one. But I think that'll be the end for me, regardless of what happens. Yep, then I can retire, absolutely. Good evening, Josh, absolutely. All right, so last minute, let's start winding her down. It's going to be a shorter episode this week, as I said. Brad right now is jet setting off in the world. Luke is right now ready to attend a show here in the coming days over the weekend. And then we'll reconvene next week, and hopefully we'll get a chance to get some stories from the Mint Collective. We should have a little bit of fun with that, so that should be good. Obviously, there was eventful happenings. We'll get his take and his perspective on that visit down there, and we'll find out if he actually spent all his time at the craps table in Vegas. We want truth from Brad. We're going to have to...
Also,
the
confirmation I am going to the National, Luke, so I will see you there.
Ooh.
I still haven't even booked my room yet.
Me either, but I'm going.
See, what's funny is you guys haven't booked the room. I have a room, and I haven't figured out the rest of it. The room I've got. That part I've taken care of. Hopefully there'll be a Pauly Shore Easter egg in Series 1 with Connor Bedard, SSSP. I like where your head's at. I feel like it's my civic duty to remind everyone to smash the like button. Thank you, Josh. Absolutely. Bougie Bad now, not Bougie Eric. Eric lost his Bougie to Brad. I don't know. You guys don't know what Eric's rolling around in. I see. He might be pimping his ride in the upcoming weeks. We'll see. Right now he's riding high. The Boston Bruins are relevant. He's very excited about this.
They're in overtime right now at the Leafs.
Well, right now, the only thing the Bruins have to play for in the regular season is to see if they can, because I think the record is 62 wins, so they still got an outside shot at 63, and maybe the points record. So if they want to try to win out, they could probably break one or both of those records because I think it's I think they can max out at 135 points, and the record I think is 132 in a season.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's a big right now. This season, that's why I said earlier when I talked about the McDavid thing and a lot of the other stuff is that this season there's been a lot of stuff that hasn't happened in a while, and a lot. Like I said, as much as make fun of the Bruins. Now, mind you, if they do nothing in the playoffs, all of this is irrelevant. Just to be clear, it's completely irrelevant. They actually have to win something in the playoffs. However, for regular season, very strong for the regular season, and a lot of great regular season. We're seeing all those 100-point guys, and we're seeing some really good performances there too. And a couple more players are in striking distance to get 100. Jason Robertson got 100 points this year. First Dallas star to do that. So, like, a lot of firsts. We're getting a lot of firsts, or people at least on the cusp of something interesting. So it's been a good season if people have been keeping an eye on it.
Oilers have 3 100-point players.
Yep.
First time since like 85, I think it is.
It would have been the first time in a while because there were many years, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s, where it's like, yeah, you could lead the league with like 90 points.
Man, Nugent Hopkins is a sleeper, though. I didn't realize he had that many points this season.
That team is high octane this year. Like they're scoring a lot.
His season high previous to this year was 67 points.
Yeah,
I remember he was very hyped when he came out originally. Like I remember his Young Guns and Cup cards being pretty crazy back when I liked collecting hockey cards.
That's why I say right now, if you are interested in it, I would say check out the late part of the season just to see if any of these players do any of these interesting things because there's a bunch of players in striking distance. There's a couple more guys who have a shot at 50 goals. Like that's interesting. Like maybe a couple of guys creep into the 100-point thing because I think I could be wrong because I feel like McKinnon got to 100 points in like 60 something games, under 70 games, which is actually very impressive as well. So it's like really, it's been really good if you're just kind of keeping an eye on it from the side and kind of scoreboard.
Because McKinnon was McKinnon injured?
I think so because I think he missed some time, but even still, like he's still racked up crazy points for like missing some time.
I still think it's pretty crazy. Ovechkin sitting at 42 goals.
Yeah, and he missed some time too. He had to go away for a bit, and this is a slow year by him. He's in his late 30s, late portion of his career, and if he had a little bit of a hot streak earlier in the year and didn't miss those games, then he would have been pushing 50 again.
Easily,
which would have been a record. And as it is, he's already got the 40-goal record, but he could have had the 50-goal record if he had a hot streak this year. There you go. Bruins win.
No.
MB Collectibles says, I hate the Bruins, but I hope they break both records. Hell of a season they had, though. There you go. As I say, I've been enjoying the story. I enjoy the storylines, even if I'm not watching all the games. I enjoy the storylines, so I'm interested in that and seeing what comes out of it. Anyway, so with that said, thanks everybody for joining in. Appreciate you. If you could hit the like button on the way out, it does help out the channel. Like I said, we'll be back. We should be back to full strength next week. We'll get Brad in here. He'll give us some tales of his Learjets. He's probably styling and profiling with Ric Flair out there. Like I know, it's champagne falling from the sky. It's a lot of exciting stuff. A lot of exciting stuff in there.
Carlos, Boston scored short-handed in overtime.
Sounds like the fix is in. I think it's a fix is in. I don't think the Leafs should play Boston anymore.
I really don't think so.
It never works out. Ever since they lost that playoff series, Luke. Ever since they lost that playoff series, I just sat there. I'm not a Leafs fan, so I don't care. But ever since that, I was like, "Wow, really? You lost that one, huh?"
That is like ingrained in my brain, like exactly what I was doing. That like it will never like that is like a moment in my life that I will never forget.
Which playoff series? Because I mean, there's like 40 of them in the last like 40
But there's
years.
the I think it's the first one. It's the first one specifically. But Luke, the first one was legendary because the Leafs were leading in the third period. I forget the exact scenario, but they were supposed to win.
It was 3-1. They lost 4-3.
Yeah. Yep. It's like, but it was late enough in the game where it's like, literally, guys, I use the football joke here. You just had to take a knee. Just take a knee. Don't do anything. Literally. Don't do anything crazy. You don't have to do anything. It was fine. And it was in Game 7 and the whole, like, I saw that there's a YouTube video that went viral at the time where somebody actually had a camera in their house watching the game, and you got to see the slow descent into madness as the goals were getting scored, and you got to like watch the whole sequence. And I'm sitting there like, this is more entertaining than it should be. I'm a bad person for enjoying this as much as I'm enjoying it, and it's spectacular.
It was rough.
So real quick here. Good night, James. Take her easy. Pasternak 57 goals. That's good. Well, you might maybe couple of multi-goal games, get the 60. That'd be interesting. 260 goal scorers this season if he manages that one. That'd be pretty good. Power play after they took the penalty off the board. There you go. Thank you, Doug. Yep, leaves merely a Timbit team. It's facts. Facts. All right, folks. It's been a pleasure. We'll chat a little bit more next week. We'll have a little bit of fun. And like I said, we should be back in full strength. We'll try to have a normal length episode. But thank you all who did pop in to join in. And yeah, if we got any other comments or questions, if you check it on replay and you got any questions, just throw them in the comment section. And we'll direct them to the team so they can try to answer anything for you. Otherwise, hit the like button on your way out. Have yourselves a good one. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Support it. And then we can make fun of Leafs together.
Right.
We'll do it for Kevin. Do it for him. Yeah, do it for him. All right, folks. Have yourself a good night. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.